Hello, you guys. We're about to do another review. Percocet, narcotics. Let's get into it, okay? This is our week 7 review. We're going to go over some things that we covered in the class so far. So make sure you refer back to your textbooks, go online to your modules on Cengage, and go over everything that we talk about after you watch this video, okay? So in week 1, we went over FDA as well as the DEA. The FDA oversees the drug test and release. They're going to also investigate unsafe products or drugs that's on the market. So they have the ability to approve and remove drugs from the market, okay? And they're going to ensure your safe labeling. So they're concerned with your labels, your warnings. They want to make sure you have your active and inactive ingredients in your labeling on your pill bottle, okay? They're also concerned with general safety standards in the production of drugs. As far as the DEA is going to be more concerned with your controlled substances, your narcotics, things that you have the ability to get addicted to faster. So those are going to be your narcotics and your controlled substances. That's what they're going to be concerned with. They want to know how you hide your prescription bottles. Are you double locking your narcotics? Are you double locking your controlled substances? How do we recognize the controlled substance? It's going to be our C and our Roman numeral. That's going to be our symbol. So there is a controlled substance schedule from 1 to 5. And if you want, you can review back to the previous video, and it will tell you a little bit more about what each level represents. Remember, we said in a C1 symbol is a drug that can't even be used in the United States. It's not approved. So it's going to go from your highest level of addiction to your lowest from 1 to 5. And it's going to be recognized by a C and a Roman numeral. That's going to be your controlled substances, okay? And that's what the DEA is concerned with. Now, as far as your drug classification, we talked about drug classifications briefly. Drug classifications are, you have some common drug classifications. So it's going to be your beta blocker, your ACE inhibitor. You're going to have an anti-diabetic. So, there are several different things. So, say, for instance, if they're asking you for a metformin, and you don't have a metformin, you need to know what drug classification that falls within and what that is going to do. Is it going to help with your urine? Is it going to help with your heart rate? You need to know what therapeutic use falls within each drug classification. So if you don't have a metformin, if they're asking you for that, you need to know what other drug falls within that drug classification, and you can get that, especially if you're in a hospital setting. A lot of times you don't have a fast amount of time to get it. A doctor's office, it might be a little different. So you want to be familiar with each drug classification and what their therapeutic use is in and what drugs falls within that, okay? Also, the different names for a drug. We talked about 4. We have the generic name, the trade name, the original name, and then the chemical name. The generic name is going to be just a regular name if you go to the store. So say, for instance, if we say a detergent, that's just a detergent. Then, or a Gain or Tide. So say, for instance, here we have just ibuprofen. This would be considered our generic name. This is the store-bought brand, okay? Now, our trade name is going to be the name that the actual pharmaceutical company calls it. So usually it will come in this type of bottle, and it will have the actual trade name for it. You'll be able to recognize the difference. Remember, our generic names are normally lowercase, and our trade names are capitalized on our bottles. Also, we have original name. The original name is going to be the same as our generic name. And then we have a chemical name. The chemical name is the exact molecule form. You probably won't use that much unless you're actually working in a lab setting. So just remember what those 4 different names are for a drug. Now, we also talked about different prescriptions, a prescription pad and what to recognize on it, making sure it has a signature. And if you see DAW, what does DAW mean? Dispense as written. So you can't make any particular changes to it. If it says give it 25, I need 25 and not 10. You don't know what exactly that doctor or physician told that person to take. So if I want you to take it for 2 weeks and you didn't dispense as written, then that can cause some issues later on. So make sure we recognize those things and remember what those symbols are. Like we talked about RX, what does that mean? You need to become real familiar with those things, okay? Also, we talked about sound-alike, look-alike drugs that can get you in a lot of trouble. You need to know exactly what the person is talking about. Ask for clarification. A lot of times, say the bottling, the color of the drug, if it's made by the same company, it can look exactly alike. So you want to make sure you know what it is that you're getting. Take the time to actually read the label, read the bottle. Most companies do what's called tall lettering, and that's going to be capitalizing a letter within the drug to make it look different, so you can be able to differentiate it from another drug that is commonly mistaken for, okay? So make sure you remember that tall lettering and sound alike, look alike drugs, okay? Also, we have different things like over the counter. Over the counter doesn't require any prescriptions. It's going to be no restrictions by the FDA. You can go in and get it. You might want to consult somebody about it, but it's at your own risk. There's not that much risk associated with it, but it's over the counter. And then you have a legend drug. A legend drug is a prescription drug that is considered to be unsafe for over the counter. So it's because it can produce harmful side effects. That's going to be our birth controls. That's going to be antibiotics, any cardiac drugs, and hormones. So those things are I'm going to consider our legend drugs. And then we talked about controlled substances, what that is, how to recognize that on a bottle, what the symbol looks like, and then we talked about that controlled substance schedule. Also, contradictions. What is that? It's a list of conditions of which the drug should not be given. Okay, so if you are pregnant, if you have cancer or something like that, and you might want to consult your physician before taking that drug, that would be considered a contradiction, and then you have a side effect slash an adverse reaction. That's a list of possible unpleasant or dangerous things or side effects that we will want to happen as a result of taking a drug. So that might cause dizziness or slurred speech. It might cause sensitivity to light. So those things are considered side effects. Like I said, our contraindications, it's going to be a little different because that's just something that you can cause upon yourself if you know of certain conditions and you shouldn't be taking those medicines, okay? So that's the difference between that and then our side effects. Now, we also talked about sources of drugs. Sources, where did it come from? You have plants, you have minerals, you have genetically engineered or DNA, and then you have animals. Yes, animals. So like our thyroid medicine is going to come from that's going to come from an animal. Our thyroid USPs, that's what's going to come from our animals. Our plants are the most common drug source, okay? And then our minerals, you have different things that's going to fall within each category, like our magnesia, different things like that. So make sure you're familiar with what the source comes from. It's just good to know. Like I said, plants is going to be our most common drug source. Also, we talked about the drug processing for a body, or pharmacokinetics. Okay, there are 4 different stages. First, you have absorption, then you have distribution, you have metabolism, and you have excretion. So absorption is how the medicine actually gets into the bloodstream. Whether you're taking it orally, whether you're taking it by IV, however you're going to take it, it's how that medicine gets into your bloodstream. Secondly, you have distribution. When that medicine gets into your bloodstream and it parts to whatever parts of the body that needs to be treated, and it's going to go through your body by part of bodily fluids or your tissues, okay? So that's how it's going to get there. And then you have metabolism, how that medicine breaks down, okay? I know in class we talked about medicine having a timer in it. So sometimes people like to crush their medicines, but sometimes it's not always best because medicines have timers in it. The medicine releases itself every few hours. If it says take every 12 hours or something like that, that's usually because it has a timer in it. And if you're breaking that medicine down, you're messing up the timing in that medicine, and you're causing the effect to change from what it's originally intended to do. Okay, so that's the part of metabolism, the actual breakdown of the drug. And then excretion, how the medicine releases itself. Is it going to go through your blood? I'm sorry, not your blood, but your sweat glands or your urine. How is it actually releasing from the body? A lot of times when it's releasing from the body, especially antibiotic or something like that, your urine is very strong and dark. So you will know that it's trying to push itself out. It's still some here in your system. We talked about briefly different things that would actually affect the medicine being in your body longer. So age is one. For age, if you're older, usually for older people, it takes longer for the drug to break down as well as release itself. So a lot of times when you say if you have to take a drug test for a job or something like that, and you knew you took medicine, but you didn't think it was still in your system, that's usually because of age factor. It takes longer for an older person to break down that drug and release itself. Now, usually, it'll show up these type of common drugs. I don't know if you can see that. This is the actual drug analysis. And this is right here. This is going to be the one for your saliva. And then this one here is going to test for some of the same type of things. This is going to be your urine analysis. Okay? So it's going to test for your PCP. That's going to be your street drug. Your COC, that's your cocaine. Your THC, that's your actual, your marijuana. So, you have several different things it's going to test for your meth. Those things, it's going to be common within both drug test forms. Okay? So if it takes longer to release this stuff, it's probably because, it's still in your system. So consider age as a factor. There are different variables that affect how the drug reacts in your body. Like we said, age. So with younger people, the threshold, the children rather, the threshold is a lot different. So you have to watch how they react to the medicine because it can be a quicker turnaround time. Okay. Also, you have weight. If you're heavier, the drugs reacts different. You might have to supposed to take drugs according to your body size. Now, if you're obese, then you have to be very careful with that because you should take the drug according to what your ideal body weight should be. Okay? Now, gender plays a big role as well. I know you guys probably remember the Hydroxycut commercial when it was a gentleman and a female. They were both taking the same drug, started at the same time, but the reactions were different. A lot of times with females, our drugs are going to react different because of our hormones as well as our weight. We generally carry more weight than our men. So it's going to play a different part. Also, we have psychological state. You guys, this was so funny, okay? A lot of times people say, I don't believe that stuff. It's not working. It's not going to work for you. Psychological state is true. It's known as the placebo effect, okay? The placebo effect says that how I feel about the medicine, how I feel it's going to work for me, normally determines whether it works or not. So if I have a positive outlook on the medicine, okay, this is going to work, then it normally works. But if I think that it's not going to work, then it is going to do the exact same thing that I think. So that's called the placebo effect. Then we have dosage types. The different dosage types, whether it's a loading dose. A loading dose, we're trying to get more into the bloodstream, and then we're going to go ahead and after we get enough medicine in the bloodstream, then we're going to go ahead and just do a regular dosage after that. We have a maintenance dose. A maintenance dose is when we're just trying to keep it in the bloodstream, so we're just trying to maintain that drug. We have a lethal dosage. This can cause death. So you want to be very familiar with that. A minimum dosage. A minimum dosage is the smallest amount of medicine you can take to produce a therapeutic effect. And then a maximum dosage. So make sure you're going through your textbooks and going through those particular subject items so you can remember what those things are. Okay? So we also talked about routes of administration. There's two different forms of routes of administration. You have eternal and you have pathernal. So eternal is going to go by your GI tract, okay? It's going to be your orals. It's going to be your rectal. So those things are going to normally go by your GI tract. So say, for instance, our GI tract, our orals, is going to be our regular pills. So we have our pills. That's going to be one. And if we had a emblem or anything that it needs to go up your rectal, that's just an example of one of those things. Okay, then we have our parenteral routes. It's going to be our injection routes. So our injections are our IVs, our intramusculars. Okay, so it's going to be something like this. Say, for instance, this is an insulin pen. Okay, this is not going to go through your GI tract. This is totally different. Okay. We talked about the advantages and disadvantages of both routes. So for our eternal routes, normally our oral routes is easier, but the side, it takes longer to produce a result. Versus our parenteral routes, our IVs, is straight to the point. It's quicker, but sometimes you have to have a smaller dosage. So we talked about our Pitocin. So when say for instance a woman is in the hospital and she's having a hard time with her labor, they're going to give you a Pitocin to help go ahead and push it. Try to make some progress happen basically. So if you ever see it, the Pitocin or whatever fluid they need to give you is barely coming down that IV. It's barely coming from the bag. So they give you a small amount of it because it doesn't take long at all to actually produce an effect. Sometimes those same fluids have to be diluted because it's so strong and it doesn't take long. So you really have to monitor those type of routes. Then you have our non-ejectable routes that can still fall within the parental. And that's going to be, say for instance, our sublinguals. This is a sublingual B12. You're going to actually place it underneath your tongue, okay? That doesn't have to go through your GI tract. Then you have your topicals. Your topicals can be your creams. Here's another example of a topical, okay? So we want to make sure we remember what those things are and what are the advantages and disadvantages of both. Then we have our different drug forms. You want to know what is a tablet. This is going to be an example of your tablet. Okay? Look at the body of that. And then what about your capsule? Okay? Look at the different body of that. It's easier to go down. So we want to make sure we remember what the different drug forms are. Okay? And those usually can set along. It can be your topical, your sublingual, or transvaginal, a nasal spray. Anything like that will fall underneath your parental, and it's a non-ejectable route, okay? So make sure you remember what those different things are. Like I said, the tablets, they can come in a variety of sizes and colors, and it may be coated to easily, enhance swallowing. And where we have our capsules, our capsule drugs, so they're going to contain a gelatin container, so it's make it easier to swallow. You can see that, okay? And I say, for instance, if we had a suppository, it's going to be a drug that suspends in a substance, such as a cocoa butter, and it melts by the body temperature. So just make sure you go through those things. It's all in your textbooks. Make sure we talk about our abbreviations as well as the systems of measurements. What exactly do I mean when I say kilogram? How much do I need? Is it going to be based off your body weight? And what's the formula? So those things are very important to know when you're talking about dosage calculations and abbreviations. So we're going to talk about some common abbreviations, okay, of measurement. So say, for instance, an A is going to mean before. AC is before a meal. AM in the morning time. And then say we have things like BID. BID means twice a day. Okay, we have CAP, that's going to be a capsule. DS means double strength. So you want to remember those things, okay? MG means milligram. ML means milliliter. Okay, NPO means nothing by, okay? Nothing by mouth. So make sure you remember those measurements. You don't have time, and you don't have too much error. You don't have time for error in the medical field. And this is one of those things you can cost somebody their life if you don't explain the prescriptions right, if you're giving it to them wrong. We're going to talk about that in depth a little bit more. And then we talk about some of the things that are commonly mistaken for each other. So say, for instance, that's why you need to know the difference in how it's looked. MS, it's magnesium sulfate. but it's often confused for morphine sulfate, and it's abbreviated as MS. MS is magnesium sulfate and is often confused for as morphine sulfate. Morphine sulfate is going to be MS04. And then magnesium sulfate is MS. So you need to know the difference between those abbreviations. Like I said, we talked about it earlier a little bit. Our sound like look-alike drugs and our tall lettering. That's a prime example there, but that's just the abbreviated form. Okay? A lot of times, say for instance, if you know somebody's going to be administering a drug from their home, you want to make sure you're telling them the measurements in the household systems, okay? They don't know what a milligram and all that is. You have to give it to them as a teaspoon, a measuring cup. What can they use at home that's going to help them? They don't have that same knowledge that you do. So make sure you're conveying the information in a way that they will be able to receive it, okay? And like I said, we talked about those common measurements. OZ, ounce, okay? And then, like I said, also knowing how to actually convert those units. So 1 kilogram is going to equal 2.2 pounds, okay? So say, for instance, if somebody is 150 pounds, what you would do is divide it by 2.2, and it's going to give you 68.18 kilograms, okay? So our our pounds have to be converted to kilograms. And we're going to do that with that same formula. Like I said, your body weight over your 2.2, because it's going to be 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds, okay? So if somebody was 150 pounds, it's going to be 68.18 kilograms. You need to know that a lot of times you're going to have systems that actually calculate those things for you. But if the system go bad and you need to actually verify what the system is saying, then you need to know that formula. Keep it wrote down somewhere, okay? We have 5 different things, well, actually 6 that you need to know about. There are 6 rights of medication administration. It's going to be the right medication. Like I said, make sure you're actually paying attention to what you're grabbing. You want to make sure it's the right medication, the right amount of dosage, okay? The right time. So if you're telling that person it needs to be taken twice a day, once a day before meal in the morning time, you need to make sure it's the right time. The right route, whether it's going to be an eternal or a paternal. The right patient. That is so important, okay? Do not give the wrong patient the wrong medicine. Pay very close attention to your documentation, your files. You do not want that error. And then the right documentation, okay? So, say for instance, if a medication says it's a PRN, that's taken as necessary or as needed, okay? So you need to know those abbreviations. Pay very close attention to those things, okay? If you take this time to review, go through whatever we've talked about in class, apply it to what we talked about here in this video. Make sure you get exactly what you need from your textbooks. Watch those PowerPoints. There are different things out there to help you. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in class, and we're going to move on, okay? Bye-bye.